Well, hey, welcome to the Highlands podcast. This is our final episode of this season. It has been an incredible season with special guests, lots of different topics, and I hope it was encouraging and helpful to you as we dug into a lot of wide-ranging topics. I am so pumped for our final episode of this season on marriage and family. We had an incredible guest speaker this past winter here at the Highlands named Pastor Dan Broyles. He's a licensed pastor and a Christian therapist who brought some incredible messages on Marriage 101 and Family 101. I invited him to come on the podcast to just have a deep dive conversation of marriage and family topics, raising kids, connecting in with busy work schedules, what it looks like with kids' technology, and all sorts of things, even fair proofing your marriage. This was one of my favorite conversations of the year. Join me now for a conversation with Pastor Dan Broyles. And I'm grateful for you being on the podcast today. You are on the last episode of our season, and so we want to close out with a bang, find the best guests we know. And so I'm grateful we have a conversation on marriage and family today. And so thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a joy to get to know you and your church.
Yeah, it's just, you've been such an encouragement to everybody you come in contact with. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to jump into, we're going to have kind of a broad conversation today about marriage and family. You're a marriage and family therapist. I know you do a lot of work in this space, in the church and outside the church. And so I just want to pick your brain. We have a lot of young families that listen, that are part of our church here at the Highlands. And so I wanted to just kind of get some insights into you. You've been married for a long time, raising boys. And so just grateful for your insights today. So let's start off. I don't know if this is a softball or not, but what would you say is the greatest myth of marriage? Like, let's talk to all those, fiancés, like they have the wind at their back, everything is rose and sunshine. Like, what's the myth of marriage?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. One of them,
okay,
I would say is if you're really in love, it won't be that much work.
Okay.
If you're really in love, like it should just all come natural.
Sure.
It really shouldn't be a lot of work because there's just like this romantic feelings. And I would say any really healthy, good relationship actually is enjoyable. There's a lot of fun in it, but it's also a lot of work to look at yourself, look at your patterns, look at your history. And sometimes it's work to do things that are the opposite of what you feel.
Okay.
That's really tough to go, I don't feel like trying to resolve this right now, but it's in my best interest of my marriage. I don't feel like serving my spouse because I'm tired. It's in your best interest to serve. And so that's really a really significant one that we're in love. Or if it's a lot of work, it probably means we're not the right fit because it's supposed to come naturally. I would say it's a big one. And so I'm not trying to minimize the joy of a good marriage, a good family life, but just like anything else, actually requires a lot of, I would say, intentional work and stuff that actually is out of our comfort zone sometimes.
That's good. It's kind of like that cliche of, couples look to their wedding, but not focus on their marriage. And, but when you talk about work, it doesn't really make great love songs, like the Beatles, all you need is love. Well, really, it's all you need is work. And it doesn't really make it, I don't think that'd be a number one song. And so what would you say would be, again, let's talk to those maybe young couples, early marrieds. Sure. And you say, okay, love's not going to carry you through. It's going to be work. What does that look like on a practical basis?
So part of this, I would say, is even looking at what does my spouse really need?
Okay.
That both spiritually, emotionally, financially, what helps them thrive, and really being a student of them and trying to really go, what helps them feel connected? I wonder how I can love them. That's maybe even hard for me to do. Does it come naturally? I've talked to some couples, and one of them will say, well, I'm not really good at conflict, so I avoid things.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, oh, that's going to take some work. Or some, they want to solve things right away. And it requires a lot of patience to be like, I'm going to slow down my expectations to go at their pace to not fuel their anxiety so much. So those are hard things to do.
Sure.
And I think the best marriages are when two individuals are advocates for the other person's growth.
Okay.
That's a lot of work and intentionality.
That's good. That's good. You mentioned that word connect, and I know when you were with us preaching on marriage, you actually had a pretty unique perspective on connecting with each other. And now I'm going to ask you this in our family section as well, but we're becoming an increasingly disconnected world and society, even with all the technology and all things that's supposed to connect us, actually is disconnecting us. So how can spouses connect with each other in an increasingly disconnected world?
Yeah, I actually think part of it in today's world especially is having boundaries with technology, not having the TV on in the background, not looking at every text that comes your way when you're talking.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, part of what helps connection actually is eye contact. Eye contact really does help that. There's something actually that's really fascinating called mirror neurons, which is a really fascinating thing that they've studied, that when two people have a wonderful conversation, their brains start to mirror each other and actually look a lot alike.
Interesting.
But that does not happen when there's a little
like
bit of
they
a
physically look alike?
What's that?
Like they'll physically look alike?
Right. If they do two brain scans at the same time, they'll actually start to look alike.
Wow.
Which is pretty fascinating.
That is, yeah.
That's why I think you see some older couples and they start to almost look like each other, act like each other.
Yeah.
In sentences, because their brains honestly have been influencing each other.
Okay.
It's really fascinating. Another thing that I think really helps the connection is talking about each other's internal worlds.
Okay.
I'm not saying you're serious all the time and you have to have these in-depth, serious things.
Yeah.
But when a couple goes, hey, what's your dreams like lately? Can we talk about that insecurity I have? Or here's something I'm nervous about, or here's something God's doing, or I'm doubting God, or all those when couples talk like that, it's amazing how much that forms bonds, because you're not doing that hardly in any other relationship. You're not doing that at work. You're not doing that on Instagram or whatever it is. But when you do that with a spouse, it's amazing. It forms those bonds in deeper ways.
I don't want to checklist this, but I'm curious about maybe a frequency of how is this weekly? Is this daily? Is this multiple times a week? I would even say a couple times a week. And it doesn't have to be these drawn out 45-minute conversations every time. Sure. But it could be simply saying, I feel kind of stagnant at work today. Okay.
Versus, my boss is just a jerk.
Yeah.
Or I just can't stand traffic these days.
Yeah.
That's not. There's not a lot of internal dialogue about what's really happening.
See. Gotcha.
So talk about internal dialogue. One of the best ways to do that is talk about how your day impacted you. So not just what happened to you at your day with your kids or your work or whatever your situation is, but how that day impacted you. But that takes time to reflect.
Right.
Many individuals are like, I don't know if I want to do that, because some of the stuff I might feel or think is hard, or I'm used to avoiding or escaping. So to share that with somebody takes some intentionality too.
So let me give you two scenarios and to kind of help unpack this a little bit further. What about couples who are on opposite work schedules?
Yep.
She works days, he works nights. Maybe they see each other on the weekend. Like, what does that look like for that kind of couple?
Yeah. By the way, I would never recommend that long term.
Okay. Okay.
I realize sometimes you have to financially. Life in California is expensive, and you have to do to pay the bills. Okay. But I would never recommend that over years and years. I get short-term things that go on. Okay. Sometimes it's hard. We throw some children in there and childcare issues and all that. Sure. But I think every couple needs to have what I would call routines of connection. Okay. And that's going to look different for every couple. Some of them, it could be, some people call literally on the way home from work because they have a long commute, and they talk for 15 minutes. Some are like, I don't want to talk on the phone when I drive. Some people, it's once or twice a week, they grab some coffee and sit somewhere in their house, and they just, how you doing? Yeah. Some people, they really, literally, they're intentional about going to bed at the same time. That's actually really healthy for couples. And they go, yes. And they just start talking. So there's not like an exact checklist, like you said, I think, to do that. But having these rhythms, or, hey, there's a favorite restaurant we go to once a week that we just love going there, and we catch up about life and, the fun things and the hard things. And so every couple needs these routines of like check-ins. And the struggle about the working opposite schedules is you end up, if you're not super intentional, like living parts of your life as a single person.
Yeah.
And then weekends as a couple.
Yeah.
And this is actually it actually makes it hard for people who work in some of the first responders occupations.
Right.
Firefighting world, or some of these things where you're gone for 48, 72 hours. There's extra challenges for those marriages. It can be done well, but it takes some extra thought. Hey, how are we going to handle this? And communicate about it.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. And you actually mentioned my favorite marriage tip. Years ago, someone told me that, of going to bed at the same time. It seems so weird and insignificant, but it just makes a huge impact. So that's couples that are maybe disjointed schedules. And I love what you're saying, like just make that more of a season and short term. But we have a lot of couples, whether on our staff or even in our church, who actually work together. We have couples who start a business together, who work in the same office together, same industry, and maybe they already feel like, well, because of work, they're already connected. How would you encourage those couples?
Yeah,
like I see her all the time. I see him all the time. So we're good.
Yeah. There's a lot of things I think that's important right there is that couple, especially if they do like ministry together or they own their own business together. I actually think they even need to be more intentional about fun times together that has nothing to do with their work. Okay. It literally could be we go on a walk together, or we just go to this play or sports or whatever it is. I actually think they need to do that. And then also a great question to ask is, so let's say you have a couple, they both work or they do ministry together, to say, how are you doing outside of ministry work? Okay. And for most people, that's a hard question. I don't know. I'm working a lot of hours this week. I haven't had time to even think that way. Right. So that's not just good for the marriage. That's good for personal development, I think, too. So that our works don't become our identity, which can happen so easily with ministry or even your own business or whatever it is. Exactly. That's good. That's good. Yep. All right. So let's take us to the school of hard knocks in marriage, and let's try to learn from couples who've gone before us. What are some big mistakes that you've seen that couples should avoid? There's a lot of big ones. I'd say one of the big ones is assuming the motives of the other person. That is so dangerous when we assume motives. So I'll give you a stereotypical example. Yeah. So let's say you have a couple in which the husband normally gets home from work around 6-ish. All right. That's kind of the routine. And she gets home before him, maybe a little bit earlier. Now, for whatever reason, it's 6:15, 6:30. He doesn't text and he's not home. Right. And she's texted once, doesn't hear back. That scenario. So now at about 6:45, which is unusual for him, let's say, he strolls in and he goes, "Hi." And she says something, and then there's the tone already, and she goes, "I texted you." Right. Now, what she's going to be really tempted to believe is you didn't communicate with me because you don't care about me. If you would have cared, you would have. Now, to any guy out there, I recommend texting back and communicating that up front so you don't feel anxiety. For any guy listening, please communicate better than this illustration. But she's going to have to fight that thought of, see, it just shows he doesn't care about me. Wow. And that's an assumption versus he might have been really stressed out with his boss. He might have been over-consumed by something in his life that just kind of took over his brain. He's thinking about money or the future. Sure. And all these things, and that's really dangerous. And again, this can go either way, where he assumes stuff about her, and she's really in kind of a grumpy mood, and he goes, "See, she cares more about the kids than me." Right. And makes all the assumptions when really she might be struggling with some self-identity issues. She might be struggling with feeling really alone, and it's really not about him. That's a good one. Yeah. Or she has a little bit of a tone, and she's always disrespectful. See? That's good. And we assume her motive. So in my own marriage, my wife's name is Carly. We've been married 27 years, and we use the phrase BOD, that's just kind of come out of our marriage, which stands for benefit of the doubt. And so something will happen once in a while with us, and all of a sudden one of us will say to each other, BOD. like there's more to the story here. Sure. Be careful. And we both almost chuckle when we say it to each other, like, "Oh, we slow each other down." Because we all do it once in a while. And, you know, unfortunately it happens, and we just fill in those blanks quite easily. So that's really, I would say, a dangerous thing. And really, I think benefit of the doubt is one way to live out the gospel of living out grace. That you're initiating kindness even with motives.
That's good.
Initiating love. Just, I mean, God was the initiator of love towards us first.
Yes.
And so, and I think most couples have struggled to go, how God treated me influence how I treat my spouse?
Yeah.
I think there's we we have our marriage world over here on one side, and we have a spiritual world, or maybe go to church over here. Versus wow, my wife's really kind of grumpy today. I get to live out God's grace with her.
That's good.
Right? I think that's supernatural. That's Holy Spirit stuff. That's not our normal normal thoughts at all. I would say another one that we minimized is we minimize some communication techniques or communication patterns, and is lack of reassurance.
Okay.
And minimizing our tone. So lack of reassurance and minimizing our tone.
What do you mean in minimizing your tone? Yeah, okay, please.
So the reassurance one. So if a wife says to her husband, I just want to reassure you, I'm committed to you. Even though I'm frustrated you're not home very much because you work so much, I'm so glad you work for our family. That means the world to me that you dedicate your heart to providing that way for us.
Yeah. Okay.
That guy will actually want to work even harder for her. Or if the husband goes, I just want to reassure you, I don't want any woman but you. I'm not trying to go find that. I'm not trying to compare you. You're the one for me. You're the one I make my vows to. I just want to reassure you that. I know I haven't told you that lately. You're the one I want to be exclusive with. And my pursuits.
So you're saying to verbalize these regularly. Verbalize. That's good. Okay. Interesting.
As humans, we all need some reassurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the Bible doesn't have one time where God says, I love you.
Right.
There wasn't one verse in one gospel where Jesus goes, yeah, there's some love here. No, it's repeated of, I've been faithful to you. I love you. Extends grace towards us. I mean, that's just the theme of the scriptures is how he's acted towards us. And so, I think that's big. And then, like I said, our tone.
Okay.
I had a gentleman just this week go, she says I'm mad at her lately, and I can't even think of one time. and you know, it's funny but not funny situation.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right? And in this situation, she is really sensitive to his intense tone. Not even yelling, not screaming, not swearing. Just when he gets animated and tense, she feels anxious. She feels anxious, and I don't think he had any idea the impact of his tone on his wife's heart.
Wow.
And one of the worst things he could do to go, oh, you're so drama. Why are you so sensitive?
Yeah. Right.
That's
right.
By the way, for any guy listening, that's one of the worst things you can do. Versus being curious, staying humble, go, tell me about that. What's it like for you when I get intense? Can I listen? Can I listen to the impact? Because I don't think I realize the magnitude. But that, I think, really takes God humbling us to listen that well.
Is there a way to self-diagnose your own tone? Like, you know, guys, maybe they're a construction site. They're talking to guys all day. They come home, they got 3 daughters, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm not gruff. That's how I talk to the boys.
Fine. Yeah, well, I actually say for some people, what will get you a promotion at work will get you a divorce at home.
Okay.
Right.
That's good.
Depending on a construction site,
sure,
that's a leader right there. I would actually say, watch the eyes of your family when you talk.
Okay.
Notice their facial expressions. Watch their breathing. Watch their tone. Watch their eyes. Just watch the impact, because usually we're so focused on what we want to get out, meaning our words, like how I'm right or my idea is really good right now, that it's so about delivering our words, we don't even see the impact of our words. I always say, I might be the authority on my intention with my words, but I can never, ever be the authority on my impact.
Okay. That's good.
And I think it's good just to ask questions. How do you think my tone affects you lately?
Right.
And their husband or wife. It's both ways. But those are delicate questions. And then you can't get defensive if they don't give you an answer you don't like.
Right. Yeah, right? I love it.
Trying to be teachable.
So good, so practical. Hey, before we move to family, I want to ask you, you've shared, I think you have some framework around this, and I want to have you come back and speak to some area pastors about this, but could you give us a little summary? Because you talk a lot about how to affair-proof your marriage. Yep. There are just some warning signs, some things. Could you give us maybe it used to be Clip Notes when I was young, but I think it's Spark Notes now. Could you give us kind of that, quick run through of what that looks like?
Yeah, one of the biggest... sorry about that. One of the biggest things is when a couple has an ongoing problem that they stop talking about. Mm-hmm. So an example would be, let's say the wife has a dad who has dementia. That's going to be on her mind quite a bit. She loves her dad. Her dad means the world to her, but they stop talking about it because there's no quick solution. Mm. Now, if they stop talking about it, and then all of a sudden she goes to work and she runs into the male coworker, and the male coworker goes, "Yeah, my parent just got diagnosed with dementia," and they bond. That actually is setting up that wife to possibly have an emotional affair with that coworker. An emotional affair, just to start, because she needs relief and comfort in that area, and she's not getting it because the two of them are talking at home. And the next time a new diagnosis or a new treatment idea comes up with her dad, she's actually going to talk to her coworker before her husband. Mm. Wow. So just if there's anything that's going on in your life, it could be a teenager who's acting out. It could be financial stressors, any big thing that there's no quick fix. Another real big one is, I would say, online communication with exes. I know that sounds really obvious.
Interesting. Okay.
But I've seen 40-year-old individuals reach out to their first love when they were, in high school. Mm-hmm. And go, "I just wonder how they're doing." That's the rationalization. I wonder what they've been up to. Right. And especially if that was the first person they maybe actually were intimate with. And there's a bond that was formed just physiologically with that person. What happens is, I've seen this happen multiple times, that 40-year-old starts reacting like a 16-year-old when they interact online. They start flirting, going back to what it was. Remember that time? And they have sexual innuendo stuff.
Right.
And I've seen that. So I feel like that, exes, whether it's whoever it is, that's really dangerous, and it starts really quick. It's amazing how easy it is to flirt with that ex. Wow. Especially online, or especially through text or whatever medium technology you use. Right. Be extra careful. And those are just a couple of them, but
that's so good.
I really think whatever you love most, you protect most. Okay. Just like if you have a mom with a brand new baby, you injure that baby, Mama Bear is coming out. Right. Mama Bear is going to protect. You protect what you love. And so marriage is so worth protecting. And so one of the ways to protect it is some of these things. And really, I think that's God's design, protecting even some emotional connections with an ex. Right. That's not protecting. That's really not protecting.
Right. That's so good. I love it. All right, let's switch gears into families. And one of the challenges, I think, for parents right now, as opposed to, when we were growing up, was just technology, devices, iPads, iPhones, even the kids' versions of those. So can you help parents maybe have some framework for some guidelines regarding their kids' technology?
Yep. So I think there's some dangers in this. One danger is just letting the kid do what they want. Okay. That's really dangerous. Every time you're at a restaurant, the kid gets technology just because they ask, or they'll be fussy. On the other hand, anti-technology, because that's not the way it is. And when I grew up, that type of thing. Because technology in today's world is actually, for especially elementary on up, honestly, is a way to connect with their peers. It's a connection piece for them. So The challenge is there needs to be boundaries, and you have to risk your child being ticked off at you for the sake of protecting them.
Wow.
You have to do that. Yeah. So I don't think they're like these absolute hard lines about every single thing. So, for instance, I've seen some families, they go out to a restaurant, and the child is not allowed to have technology until the bill comes. And once the bill comes, and people still talk, because some people stay a long time after that, some people are done. Okay, but until then, I need to teach you, my child, how to be okay with being bored. I think that's actually a skill, because life cannot be constantly be full of entertainment. That's actually fueling potential addictions.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like, I have to fuel the sense of like stimulus all the time, no matter what.
Wow.
So being bored is actually a skill you need to teach your kids. Like, you can sit at the restaurant and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
not a sin to be bored. It's okay.
It's okay. And I remember I saying to my boys when they were younger and they're a little annoyed. I'm like, that's okay. I'm like, I want you to learn to be okay with being bored sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. On the other hand, I think once in a while, I think it's great for parents to play the games with their kids and jump in. And I think, like, if let's say a 10-year-old is really excited about a new video game, one of the dangerous things that I've actually really had to struggle with this, because I'm not into any games at all. That's not my thing. Yeah. Is to show interest in what interests them. I think that's living out Philippians 2:4. Yes. And so to go, hey, tell me what you love about that game. Really?
Yeah.
What's better than the previous version? I don't hear about it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And that type of thing. The other thing, the last thing I would say is monitor who your kids are connecting with. On the side note, I run a human trafficking task force. There's a lot of sexual predators on gaming sites now.
Right. That's true.
And to teach kids not to let strangers into your gaming rooms with you. Know who each person is. Like, even if your friend goes, "Hey, this is a friend of a friend," and it's your 11-year-old, no, we're not gonna do that. But Dad, but Mom,
yeah, that's good. Right, right.
Because they think they can tell who's dangerous. An 11-year-old can't. Adults, it's hard.
Yeah, true.
Adults, it's hard for adults too. So that's a few things I'd say to start.
Man, so good. I love that. Similar question for families. We talked about disconnected world with our couples. Let's talk about families. And I'm thinking more as kids get older and start having their own schedules. You know, they've got sports, they've got study groups, they've got even work, they've got other. How is that family going to stay connected?
Yeah, I think it even takes more intentionality. Okay. I would say enjoy connecting with your kid as you take them places. Okay. Like, those are divine moments sometimes. You're driving your kid to gymnastics or to cheerleading or whatever this thing is to go, I have 10 minutes. I wonder how I can listen to them. I wonder if I can ask them, how can I pray for your friends? That's a great question, I think, for teenagers. How can I pray for your friends?
That's good. That's good.
And not just seeing it as like, I'm their taxi. I'm the Uber.
Right.
You know, those type of things. And then there's times that you have boundaries that you actually have to plan to be better at scheduling. Hey, this coming Sunday night, we're going to go do this together or have a meal together. We're all going to say no, unless it's like an emergency, and we're just going to enjoy each other. And then that type of thing. Or, hey, let's have your friends over to our house.
That's good.
Instead of just gaming online only. Okay. As one of the things. So I think there's this balance of and finding out what your child likes to do. One of my questions I've asked a lot with family counseling, I'll ask the teenager, especially a teenager, tell me one thing you can do with either your mom or dad one-on-one that doesn't cost an arm and a leg that you enjoy doing.
That's good. Okay.
And it could be going in and out. It could be we go shoot hoops at a park. It could be we watch a certain Netflix show and we talk about it. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Having those routines of doing those things, I think, is really, really helpful.
I think something you've done as well with your boys is you've coached their sports teams. You've coached or been involved in sports. I think that's another great way to connect in with your kids.
Oh yeah, it's
like
built so many
volunteer for
memories.
the soccer and baseball or whatever. And so,
Right. So the volunteering is not just to like because there's a need, and I guess so. It's
yeah.
I get to be involved in something, and I want to develop connection memories with them.
Yes.
I want to be intentional. I want them. Here's a good question to ask. When they're 25, how do I want them to look back on their teenage years with me? And that type of stuff. And so, and even a bigger question is I wonder how I can just convey that I'm going to continue to move towards them, even if they push me away. Because teenagers push away, which is normal. They get used to adulthood. But don't be so reactionary that you give up pursuing your child. But it has to be in a different way, in a way that your child feels safe. So some parents pull away completely then, and they're like, well, they're teenagers. They do what they're going to do.
Right.
And I don't think that's wise either. Or the helicopter parent. And both of those aren't really helpful, but finding ways to connect. Yeah.
That's good. What about family dinners? Do families not have dinner together anymore? Is it just too chaotic?
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's really a disservice because there's just spontaneous things that come up at dinner sometimes at mealtime. If you actually look, I think like it's interesting if you study even the book of Acts or the early church, how much meals were a part of connecting with other believers.
That's good. Yeah.
So whether it's going out somewhere, in my own family, my wife and I'm probably the cheaper one.
Okay.
All right. So I'll be. I know she's fine with me saying that because that's the truth. And there was when my teenagers were my kids were becoming teenagers. I knew our boys, for whatever reason, just connected more and were, I think, more transparent when we went out somewhere versus ate at home.
Interesting.
Right? I just, for whatever reason, they didn't get back to homework or they want to go back to their gaming or they want to.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Versus if we were just to like go, hey, we're going to go to Chick-fil-A, we ended up connecting way more, even though it's probably a little bit more money. And I'm not saying going out to eat is the whole answer because I know people are on limited budgets, but I knew I had to like, I'm going to spend a little more money for the sake of connection. Right?
Interesting. That's good.
We're not going to spend $100 every time we go out. But
of course.
For my boys, the way they communicate, and a lot of boys do better communicating in the car because it's not face to face; it's shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
I felt like it was better for our relationship when I did that.
That's good. I love that. Okay, so our world is obsessed with instant gratification, just things that immediately satisfy and please us. Parenting is really the opposite of instant gratification, And so how this might not be a fair question, but how can parents know that they're doing a good job or they're on the right track or like they're kind of moving forward? It's hard to know, like, because it's not when they just turn 18. It's not when they turn, like, is it when they turn 50? Like, when will we parents know, okay, you know what? I wasn't perfect, but I did my best. I tried to raise them the right way.
Yeah, because there's no perfect guarantee at all.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. And I think especially like for moms, there's like mom guilt. It's like I should do it perfect.
Yes.
Like everybody else on Instagram.
I
actually would start with how am I modeling that?
Okay.
Like, I get a raise. How do I use my money? I need to take care of some stuff around the house, but I feel like watching TV. I need to I probably should go volunteer at church tonight. I don't feel like it. Or whatever the scenario is. I just think you can't underestimate modeling this. And modeling what that looks like. One of the things I think is a struggle, I know for me, for all parents also as they get older, is I need to start, like, if I'm doing anything for my child that they're capable of doing completely on a regular basis, I'm not saying to be kind, I might be enabling them a little bit.
Okay.
Like they're getting to 15.
What would you mean?
Like they're able to do more stuff around the house, but I just do it for them.
Okay.
It's easier.
Do their own laundry, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like currently right now, one of my teenage boys, I don't do it for him, but we do it together.
Okay.
All right. I'm like, you do this part, I'll do this part.
Okay.
And that's, I think, Because if I just left it up to him, I'm not sure what happened. But I know if I just did it would be easier because of my time schedule. That's probably not best for
All
me.
right. Okay.
Or like a parent complains about their kid's room being clean. Go, hey, can we spend time together? I'm going to spend 20 minutes with you just doing this. I enjoy being with you.
Okay.
I'm going to do it together. It's actually, a complaint can turn into a bonding connection time.
That's good. That's good.
Even though most parents are like, they should just do it. I'm like, you might be missing a chance to connect, even over really boring things.
Right. Okay. So parents that are listening, watching, Pastor Therapist Dan says, stop doing your teenager's laundry. I think that's the main thing. They could fold their own clothes.
At least do it together. Part of it or something.
Yeah. Sure. I love that. This is a broad question because I know there's a lot of different offshoots of this. But, we look at some things to see if we're doing things right as a parent, but what are some warning signs? And again, I know this is very broad, so you can define this however you like.
Sure.
But what will be some warning signs in our kids that we need to look for? Like, for example, maybe it's a moodiness, maybe it's a sharp. Like, what are some of those types of signs that parents should be on the lookout for?
A couple of them would be is they stop losing interest in things they normally enjoy.
Okay.
So they used to love going to Taekwondo, but now, no, I don't like that anymore. And again, I'm not saying they just switch interest.
Okay.
I'm saying there's a general, I don't like doing things that I normally would have fun doing. That's actually a possible sign of some depression. Another one to watch out for, and this is especially true for girls, is comparisons. There's some research out there how social media can even more negatively affect females, especially relationally, because there's higher levels of comparisons to other females. I know guys compare too, but especially in everything sexualized and how they look and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so when there's a constant comparison, that would be another thing to definitely to look for. Another one is their level of openness changing. Like they used to be somewhat open, and now like it's a brick wall. Like they're one-word answers. Not a day or two. Every kid's going to be moody or teenager.
Yeah.
But there's a pattern of lack of like openness, transparency. To like, there's something else going on that maybe needs some attention. Those would be some of them. I definitely look for.
No, that's good. That's good. I love that. Hey, before I jump into a lightning round and close up our conversation, this has been a treasure trove. I mean, our family's going to be having to rewatch this, so like take notes and more notes. There's one other question I wanted to ask you, and that's a lot of parents, maybe they've got that kind of tweens, 5th grade, 6th grade, they've got some teenagers, and a big topic for that age group is privacy. They want their own space. So how would you handle that? Or what would you encourage parents with, whether it's closing their door outside of, changing, but they just want their door closed, not knowing the password on their phones or anything? Like, how would you encourage parents in that, respecting maybe some boundaries? I don't know, giving privacy maybe? I'm not sure. Help us on that.
Well, I would say every 12-year-old, their parent needs to know their kids' passwords on their electronic devices. Okay. And have access to what they're doing, texting, whatever it is. I actually say if a parent pays the bills, they should have access to some degree, especially at 12 years old. Like they're on their computer, whatever.
Yes.
Especially at that age, I feel like it's different as they get older. They're 17, 18 going to college. That's really different. But having like the 12-year-old with electronics in the room where they're just hibernating there, I would not recommend that, especially for that preteen. I feel like it's a little harder in high school because so much schoolwork is around what they do online. Right. Especially that 5th and 6th grader. Obviously, they need to feel respected with privacy and changing and all that. Of course. Development kind of stuff. Yeah. But I've heard literally parents of like 11-year-olds say, well, I don't want to invade their privacy and check their phone. Yeah. And I would say we would never do that with their medical condition.
That's true.
No. Yeah. 11-year-old goes to the doctor, has a condition. Well, I don't want them to feel embarrassed. They have some issues. That feels
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really, really different. And 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds have no idea of safety concerns out there.
Right. Right.
You know, like a big one is the online bullying. Online bullying has so many negative effects on children. Actually can fuel a lot of suicidal thoughts. So one of the things I think it's really important for parents to say, especially to that preteen, is if you ever feel super anxious, scared, or awkward online in any situation, I want you to tell me and I will not get mad at you. I want to have openness because there's wonderful things online and there's terrible things online. So if you have any of those top emotions, please let me know. You're not going to get in trouble because you're open. And I want to hear about it because I care about you.
That's good. And then as they get older, 15, 16, 17, you're giving them more and more.
Yeah. And I think there's a constant conversation about trust. One of the things I have said repeatedly talk to my boys about is how you handle this will affect how I trust you.
Okay. That's good.
You know, because every teenager wants all the freedoms with less responsibilities. That's kind of teenage life. And to go, how you respond to me when there's delicate things or maybe you cross the line will affect trust. And trust is constant and it's a fluid thing. And it depends on the topic.
Yeah.
I might not trust you with certain friends, but trust that you won't steal out of my wallet. Right?
Yeah.
Grab some, cash out of mom's purse. So trust is in both categories and both trust is fluid on how it's given or received. So, but again,
that's good.
13-year-olds aren't thinking about, this will affect trust.
Right.
So they have to be reminded. I've had constant conversations. This will affect trust if we do this, or how you respond to this, or you take ownership for this.
That's good.
And that so affects life in so many areas down the road.
I love it. That's so good. Well, hey, before we wrap up, I want to do a quick lightning round. Again, these are kind of just quick off the cuff, maybe 1-2 sentences. And we'll kind of vacillate between marriage and family. So the number one issue you would say couples struggle with is what?
Seeing how their heart and their story is affecting their marriage.
Interesting.
They don't connect the dots of how their heart and their story is actually affecting their marriage of resentment, anger, passivity, whatever.
Okay. Yep. That's good. All right. The best thing you could do for your kids this week is what?
Be intentional to listen well to them and actually see them through God's eyes. See your kids through God's eyes. God loves them more.
That's good. If I can do one weekly habit or create one weekly habit to help my marriage, it would be what?
Letting them in about how you're doing.
Okay.
Letting them in.
Letting
them see how you're really doing.
Okay. And then the greatest struggle in raising teenagers is what?
It's hard to see the big picture in the middle of the distress.
That's
one of my prayers or thoughts, and I know this is a whole different conversation, is God, I want to prepare them to stand before you one day.
Yes.
Right? The biggest picture. It's not just career. It's not just how they do in college.
Yes. Yes.
How the habits they form now is going to affect the rest of their life, including their spiritual life.
That's great. That's so good. So good. And then finally, the greatest revelation or lesson in marriage you've learned is what?
In marriage, your spouse changes. And so do you.
Okay.
So how I love my wife today looks really different than when I loved her when we first married. We end up becoming very different people, let's say at 25 versus 45 versus 65. And so you actually need to adjust to love them to who they are now, not when you first met them.
That's good. That's good. Dan, thank you so much for being with us. This has been pure gold. I'm grateful for you partnering. And if is there a way for those watching or listening to connect with you, maybe some resources or some ways to have further dialogue? Is that going to be through Saga?
I'll give an email out. That'd be, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah.
The email's Pastor
of course.
Pastor Dan at valenciahills.com, Pastor Dan at valenciahills.com. And if you have more questions, I'm glad to answer or provide more resources if possible.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dan, for being with us. We close out the season on a strong note. I believe our marriages and families are going to be stronger because of our time spent with you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you were encouraged by Pastor Dan Broyles. What a great conversation. Such an insightful man who's just really meant a lot to our church. I hope you're encouraged and you took notes. If you need to go back and listen to that, make sure you share it with a friend. I know you've got maybe a couple of friends or you've got a mom or a dad that's really trying to raise their kids, and share that with them. I want to thank you for being part of the Highlands podcast this season. It has been an incredible honor to have such amazing guests as we looked at various topics. I pray that it was encouraging and hope-filled for you. Thank you for sharing, for subscribing, for liking, watching, viewing, all the different ways you've interacted with our podcast. I can't wait for our next season of the Highlands podcast, and I'll see you then. And I believe that God has incredible days ahead for you. And I pray that our podcast was a way to encourage and strengthen and help you become more rooted in Jesus. Hope you have a great, great week. God bless.